Okay, so that should be working now. Check it again one time. That's why we did this. We got sound? You can hear me? Everything's good? Okay, cool. So now we have sound. So sorry, this is the first time doing this with some new equipment. So we have a few technical errors that we're trying to get figure out how to do this. We are right now though. Tonight we are going to be making Seitan, which is kind of like a meat alternative. In this case, specifically this meal would be like an alternative to like a turkey slices with gravy over mashed potatoes. You know, like you see the TV dinners, you got the little turkey slices in there and whatnot. Most likely that was actually made based off of the same recipe. Even when you think you're eating meat, a lot of those things, they, to make it cheaper, ended up filling it with wheat proteins to make it go farther, or soy proteins. So in this case, what we're going to be using to make the Seitan is this stuff called vital wheat gluten, which is literally the gluten from wheat that's been separated. So they basically wash wheat and separate the gluten, so the starches and things wash away, and it leads behind the gluten, which is the protein, and the stuff that makes it hold together and make it sticky. So what we need is to be able to do this, it's a big bowl, and we've got about 3 cups of vital wheat gluten that's going to go in here. And then about a 1/4 cup to 1/3 of a cup of flour. This softens the texture a little bit and keeps it from being quite so chewy. And then this right here is pea protein. Again, it just helps with the texture. Also adds even more protein. How you doing, Tyson? This time we're cooking for you, man. All right, and then for seasonings, what I prefer to do for seasonings is a good bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic, a little bit of sage, and a good bit of salt. We're going to put that in there as well. And we're going to give this all the dry ingredients here a little stir. You don't want to have one bite that tastes like onion and one bite that doesn't, so get everything stirred up real nice. Cloud, get out of here a little bit. And then we are going to add our wet ingredients. So our wet ingredients in this recipe is going to be, we're just going to use some vegetable broth. You can make your own, you can buy the cartons of it. And we're going to use soy sauce. Typically, you want to mix these first. I'm not going to mix it all the way down first. I'm just going to reuse a dish here. Put a little bit of the vegetable broth in there, just so that some of it doesn't end up being too strong from the soy sauce. I'm going to dump a little soy sauce in it. And this is where stuff gets messy. Use a spoon to start it, but I'm going to just dump this right into the center. Now there's not really a set amount of the wet mix that I like to use. I kind of go by feel. What we're doing is we're making a dough, but we want it to be a really wet dough, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a little more moist, it can be a little dry. It's still going to turn out just fine. So we're just going to keep adding until we get the right mix. Oh, I guess the camera up top actually does pretty good, doesn't it? It's nice having more cameras set up now. You guys can see a little better. Add a little more. Basically, I'm just going to stir this like this until there's not much that's dry left. And just keep adding some until we get rid of all of the dry powder. There we go. A little bit more moisture on there. All right, now you can see it's a little moist. It's very spongy. So now we're going to get our hands in it and we're going to smash it. So with a Seitan, you really want to get that gluten. Work with most breads, you don't really want to work the dough very much. But in this case, we really do. We want to smash the gluten over and over and over. And already this just smells amazing. All the seasonings in there. We're going to be using garlic. We're not going to be beating any garlic. We're going to be adding garlic into the potatoes. So we're going to keep just smashing the dough, smashing the dough. You want to do this for about a good 3 minutes. Just keep working the gluten, working the gluten. And you can see if you smash it, it really sponges back into place. It should be pretty tough. Now this also, I should say, this needs to be done the night before. You want to cook the seitan the day before because it's really good if it gets to sit in the fridge overnight. That helps with the texture. You can be eaten immediately after it's done, that's fine, but it will not have the same texture. It'll be a little softer the same day. All right, so now what we're going to want to do after you're done kneading the dough here for probably 3 to 5 minutes, which we're just going to call that good enough. I would say normally I'd do it a little bit longer. We're going to actually just set this dough to the side and let it sit. It needs to sit for about between 10 and 15 minutes. More would be better. Okay, and then in the meantime, we're going to start on something else here. So we got some red potatoes. We've already washed them. We're just going to quarter these. I've already got a pot with some water in it. It's got some salt in it, and that's already going. So we don't have to wait on it. Oh man, garlic's probably the best spice out there, in my opinion. We actually add a lot of fresh garlic to the potatoes. I keep looking the wrong way for the camera. I'm not used to it. Being two different locations like this. Rid of that piece. We're not really looking for anything more than just breaking the potatoes down in size to a pretty close to uniform size so that they cook pretty uniform. I like to use red potatoes. I don't like to actually like smash them all the way after. Of course, you can smash them as much as you'd like. In fact, we'll add some herbs to them this time. So, hey Colby, would you mind stepping out and picking some fresh rosemary, please, from the garden? Add some fresh rosemary, fresh garlic. Also, I like to put the garlic in fresh raw garlic, and I like to not cook it in. If you think that's a little too much or it's going to give you heartburn, you can cook the garlic for a minute in it. Or use just powdered garlic is probably the best way to make sure if you're sensitive to garlic. If you're like me and you like garlic, then you might want to do it the way that we do it. I mean, it's actually a good tactic, man, to smash garlic. It gets the oils out. So you can get the oils going. So it might be a little rude to the garlic, but I think it can handle it. That's the great thing too about, being on a vegan diet too, though, is there's no actual abuse going on in order to make this food. No real suffering, no death. No animals get harmed for us to eat. So, and in return, the food gives us health instead of cancer and sickness. Everything we make in the kitchen is 100% organic and definitely 100% vegan. We usually do, I'd like to say we do at least 90% whole foods. A lot of the things that we do on the show itself tend to be some of the easier recipes that we do. Tend to be some of the easier recipes that we do. And that leads to just, I think it's, doesn't lead to, but I think it's just a better tactic to try to get more people to be open to our diet and to try it. And so there is a few things like right now how we're using pre-made broth, whereas we prefer to use homemade broth that we use from boiling down vegetables ourselves and leftovers from the garden. But just to make it where everybody else catches it and makes it easy for everybody else to find the ingredients, we went with the pre-made stuff. Yep, carrots is one of my favorite snacks, man. Put these in, I put them in up against the side of the pan just to keep from splashing very much. Let's actually just use this, huh? And while the potatoes are boiling, we'll get back to the seitan so that we can get it cooking. There we go. Potatoes are going. We're going to boil those until they just get soft where you can stab a fork into it easily. And then that's that. So now back to the seitan. Like I said, we're kind of speeding things up for this, but you would normally want it to sit a little bit longer and have kneaded a little bit longer. But what we're going to do, we're going to start kneading it again. So we're going to knead that again. Again, you'd want to do this for about 5 minutes just to speed things up. We're going to cut that short this time. And then in a pot over here, I have some more vegetable broth. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually bring this vegetable broth to a boil. And as soon as it hits a boil, we're going to turn it down for a simmer. We're going to let that sit again. And we can start breaking down some of the stuff for the gravy that we're going to make. So first things we're going to need is we're going to need some mushrooms. It's up to you how much you want to do. I like to actually have a good bit of mushrooms in it and like them to be pretty chunky, so. Yeah, there's already other episodes on YouTube. There will definitely be more. The more we make, the more we'll put on there. I mean, we're going to keep it going. This is just the beginning. We're just now starting to actually get the equipment to do this proper. And as you saw in the very beginning, we're just now figuring out how to use the equipment. So it'll probably take us a couple more episodes to get everything dialed and probably a few more episodes after that until we have the kitchen here in the studio fully built. But it's coming. Right, there we go. We're going to put these back in the bowl for now. Quite there yet. Put a little garlic in there. So some of this garlic is for the potatoes and some of it for this. So I can use about half what we had there. Now we're going to smash it a little bit. Like I said, the Seitan, you would have wanted to have already made this the night before. We've already made some that we're going to use for the finishing of the recipe. We're just going through how to make it. In the future, sometime in the near future, hopefully, we're going to have all the recipes posted on all of these. We do not have it that way right now. Unfortunately, you just have to watch the video and take notes if you want to copy the recipe. It will be on YouTube. You can watch it later. You can also go back through the channel here on Twitch and keep up with past videos. The bowl being pulled away would be the ghost that's in the studio here, or possibly my wife that's holding the camera over there, right over there, that keeps pulling the bowl away. I don't know why it's bothering her so much, but okay. So see, we got some garlic. Next we're going to cut up a couple onions. All of the leftovers from the vegetables that we have, if you've seen this show before, you know. If you haven't seen this show before, well, you're going to hear this many times. Do not just throw it away. That is compost. Use that compost to fertilize your garden so you don't have to pay for fertilizer. Now we want to have about the same amount of onion that we had mushrooms, etc. I guess we're gonna make. It's too small of a pan to make the gravy in that. Need a larger pan. So now that this here is about to be boiling, finish up. We're going to cut up one more onion for our gravy. It should be about the right amount, and then we're going to go back to the Seitan. There's a bunch of different ways to cook Seitan. One, you can put it in broth or in water and boil it like what I'm doing here. This is a way to make a more flavorful, more juicy Seitan. If you want a little bit tougher Seitan, but you want it to stay juicy, then you can steam it. You'd wrap it up in parchment paper and then steam it. If you want to have a more drier, tougher, more steak type consistency, then you can actually broil it or bake it. You can even pan sear it, so you can literally throw in a pan and fry it up. I think one more. We need a lot of onion in the gravy. We do actually have our own garden. We grow a lot of our own food, and eventually the plan is to grow all of our own food. which that's another thing we're going to be doing here, Tyson. We're going to have shows about gardening. So we're going to be teaching people how to garden, how to grow your own food, how to make your own compost from the leftovers, everything that we talk about here and that we eat eventually will be grown in the garden. Also have a wood shop, so we're going to do a lot of lessons on how to make planter boxes and all kinds of fun stuff. So Jess, will you find me another thing of broth, please? Should be one more thing of broth somewhere. All right, that is just about to be at a boil right now. Move this broccoli over. Thank you. Bowl wasn't big enough for everything there. So we got our onions, we got our mushrooms, we got our garlic. You could also add a little bit of celery if you wanted to for the gravy. I like it just basically onions and mushrooms for the most part though. All right, so now we're gonna get back to our seitan here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take it out, put it on our cutting board. We're gonna take it, slide the bowl out of the way again, and we're gonna cut it right in half. These don't have to be perfect at all. Cut it in half again. Make 4 chunks like this here. Then we are going to smash it out. And of course it's going to sponge back, so you got to do this for a minute in order to actually get it to spread out enough. Do this again. Now we should be bringing our broth to a boil, but then we don't want to actually boil the seitan. Because if the water is too vigorous and it's too rough, then it's going to end up kind of pulling it apart and making it too soft. Want it to stay together and stay tough so that it has that texture. Now you could do all kinds of things like with this. You could actually wrap it up in and make it into like a cylindrical tube with parchment paper and put sausage seasonings in it and make sausage. In this case, we're going for more like a turkey or a chicken flavor, as most meat eaters would be used to. For us, it's more of a onion, garlic, sage flavor, which is typically what you would season those types of meats with, which is why they get that type of flavor. Okay, so we're just starting to get a little bit of a boil there. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it in just for time's sake though. This here right on in the pan. I'm gonna give it just another minute to make sure that it's up to temp there, but as soon as it gets up to temp and it starts boiling, we're going to turn it down to a simmer. Yeah, the onions are getting to me, bro. It's rough, but they're so good. I'd cry if we didn't eat them. All right, we got a little bit of broth left over here. You could also, normally what I do is I would reuse this broth here that we're using for the seitan to make the gravy out of the next day. So in this case, since we're doing the same day, we're actually going to use some fresh broth for the gravy. But typically, after this cooks for about 30 or 45 minutes, you'd pull the seitan out of it and then you would put it in the fridge and let it cool. And then what you'd end up with is this right here. This is the finished seitan. Got an onion peel in it, but this here is the finished seitan. So this is what we're going to use today since it's already finished. We're going to take it and we're going to slice it into some thin slices. And this right here, I mean, just like this, you can make sandwiches with it. You could do all kinds of things. You could use this to make fajitas. Pretty much anything that you would use a slice of chicken in, you can use this for. Go through, slice this whole thing up here. So that stuff's actually delicious. Chop it up and put barbecue sauce on it. Really good. Other things too you might have had before that people think you can't do as vegans, like gyros. I absolutely love using Seitan to make gyros. It's amazing. And you can use vegan yogurt to make the tzatziki sauce. Really good stuff. This here is probably, with using the gravy like this is kind of the best way to experiment with Seitan, because it leaves you, we are boiling that after I said not to boil it. It leaves you a lot of room for error. So if the texture's not quite right, it'll still turn out really good, because it'll basically just be cooked and soaked in the gravy. What we're gonna do, take an oven pan here. This is just an extra touch that I like to do. You do not have to do this at all. You can throw this stuff right into the gravy and use it just like that, but I like to put it in the pan and throw it in the oven for a few minutes. Kind of brown it up. Just adds to the texture and to the flavor a little bit. Doesn't matter if they touch, it doesn't matter if you oil the pan, it's about to get this and it's just going to get a whole lot of gravy poured over it, so it really just doesn't matter. Just wanting to spread them out enough that I know they're all going to get a little bit of browning. That's it. But you can see the texture there is definitely kind of resembles meat. Not the biggest fan of making things that resemble meat, but I know a lot of people out there, they're making the transition from eating meats to eating a vegan or a vegetarian meal. This really helps. Thank you very much for the host there, Destroyer. I hope this is the sound working good for you guys. Are you guys able to hear me nice and clear? Hopefully it's all working out. We're gonna check the potatoes. They're still a little tough. So see, we got our Seitan in here simmering. Just gonna move them around just a little bit so they're not stuck together, but I really don't want to do much of that because they're still really soft at this point. And they're actually gonna continue to stay soft like that. They don't really stiffen up like this here until after it's cooled, which is why you really want to let it cool, because otherwise it can end up being really sticky. So here, let me adjust the sound a little bit. There we go. Is the volume a little better there now? Let me know if it gets too loud. This is the first time using the new mic on my shirt here, so we're trying to get it right. All right, so then what we're gonna turn our oven on, if I can figure out how. I'm gonna turn the upper one on to 350, that'll work. Actually, I guess I'll let it heat up for a second before I put that in there. Like I said, normally after we cook the Seitan, we'd have this this broth here to use for the gravy, but in this case we're not going to do that. We're actually going to set this to the side here in a second. I'll finish cooking it later because we don't need to cook that because we already had some cooked and I needed the space. So I'm actually going to go ahead and move it to the side now so that we can start making our gravy. Don't actually need that pan. Don't want to burn my hand either. Leave that on the warmer. Hopefully that'll do enough for it. And then what we're going to do, we're going to grab our cast iron here. This one's been around for a while. You can tell by the broken bits on it there. Turn this up to high just to get it hot real fast. We're going to put a scoop of coconut oil in there. We're going to let that coconut oil get hot. And then we're going to add all of our veggies that we just chopped up to it to start making our gravy. Actually, I have had a drink since I've started there, Tyson, but thank you. I will have a drink, man. Stiller Wolf, thank you for the subscription, man. Oh, was it did you subscribe or was that a gift? Okay, because a lot of times it doesn't tell me if someone gifts it, it just says who subscribed. Okay, well thank you. It's much appreciated. As soon as these potatoes get out of the way too, we'll have a little more space there, which actually I'm going to hand those to you when they're done and let you pour those off so that it's kind of a two-person thing with that big of a pot. So I'll let you know here in a second. So now that our oil's getting hot, we're going to add all of our vegetables, which are our garlic, our mushroom, and our onions. And I had a separate spoon for that, but I don't know where it is. So we're just going to use the same spoon for everything. It really doesn't matter. There's no cross-contamination worries when you're dealing with vegan cooking too, other than taste. Or of course allergies if somebody has allergies. But you do. Drinking water is probably the most healthy thing you could do for yourself, is staying hydrated. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to prep our broccolini. Now to prep the broccolini, you got to wash it. We've already washed it. Basically what we're going to go through and do is clip off all the ends. You can tend to have a little tough end on it where it was cut before. Get them all to line up a little bit here. Same thing you want to do with like asparagus, is just get rid of that end so that then they're nice and fresh and they don't have that funky little rough edge on them. I do a couple recipes with broccolini. I don't think I've done one yet. Or actually, I might have done one in one of the first few videos I did. I don't know. But I do a few really good ones that use sesame oil, and it's almost like a teriyaki flavor. It's amazing. Really, really good. Onion skins in there. So we're just cooking the vegetables until they break down a little bit. Everything gets softened. The onions will turn translucent. Basically means that we've taken all the flavor from them and not much more they can do at that point but burn. So all right, potatoes are now done boiling, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them off the screen, and then magically they're going to come back with no water in them. So let you guys take care of that. So plus this will start giving me some more space here again. Now we can move this thing back onto a burner. Turn it back on to simmer. There we go. Usually it takes about 30 minutes or so. You got to give it a little bit of time for the seitan to cook through. That noise a minute ago was the oven beeping at me and telling me it's preheated. So that means we're going to throw our seitan into the oven and let that cook for a few minutes. All right, now we're going to start the prep for the potatoes. They should be coming back to us magically with no water in them. So this is some fresh rosemary we just picked out of the garden. With the seitan, savory herbs are really where it's at. Sage, thyme, rosemary. I mean, just think about just like you'd want to do with like a chicken recipe. Garlic and herbs is really where it's good. Same here. Alright, so we're actually gonna put that back into this little dish here. You can use powdered garlic for this, like I said, if you don't want it to be quite so strong. I happen to like garlic. I like raw garlic, so I typically cut it up fresh. So what you do want to make sure you do though is you want to cut it up pretty fine. So you want to do this for a little while until it gets to pretty small pieces. Get a piece of the skin in there. Go. Put this in the same container. Stuff's getting pretty close here. See, we're starting to get nice caramel color to the onions. All right, so the only other things we're going to put in the potatoes are we're going to put a little bit of olive oil, which I forgot to grab. We're going to add some extra virgin olive oil. We're going to add some salt. We're going to add garlic, rosemary, and some ground black pepper. And that is it. That is the only thing that we need to put in there. You know, I cut garlic every day for what, probably 15 years now, probably almost 3 times a day sometimes. So, yeah, no, when we do a lot of garlic, we make it in a food processor and chop it up and then just put it in a jar with some oil. That way you don't have to do it very often. Makes it a little easier. Garlic is delicious though. All right, so now, I don't know if this is gonna melt that or not. Move things out of the way here. So now we got our potatoes here. we're gonna add our garlic, our rosemary in there. Pretty generous helping of salt. We're gonna grind some pepper. I'm actually gonna put it on a pretty big setting, so some chunks of pepper in there. Again, personal preference, I like pepper too. So I like to have nice bites of pepper flavor rather than it just getting really spicy hot from the pepper. So our stuff's almost ready for the gravy there too. Now I really wish I had that other spoon. There it is. Okay. Add our oil. I'm just going to lightly smash this. I like my potatoes chunky, so if you want more smash, then of course the longer you smash them, the better, but I just happen to like mine very lightly smashed, so it's still chunky. Alright, there's that. Now we're going to turn that down to medium now that the vegetables are done. We're going to take these potatoes, I'm going to set them to the side here. Starting to run out of room here. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add broth. This is where you could use the broth from the Seitan that you made the day before. We're going to add broth to this. That's going to cool the pan down, slow the cooking down so that it'll stop trying to burn. And it's also going to pick up all that charred onion and mushroom that was on the pan. Again, no specific recipe on this. I make gravy all the time. I use miso paste and mix it in water to make a broth. I use vegetable broth. I use broth after I steam or boil down some vegetables or leftovers that would have normally just been composted. You can boil them, make a broth, and then still compost what's left out of it. We're going to kind of break that stuff loose off the bottom of the pan too. Get all that in there. Again, a little bit of salt, some black pepper. I'm actually going to check on the Seitan in the oven. Mashed potatoes are life. Potatoes in general. All right, I'm going to give a look at the Seitan here. So it's definitely warm, but it's not very browned at all. So we want to give it a little bit of browning. We're going to leave that in there a little bit longer. So we're going to give this a stir. Now the next thing that we need here, actually I'm going to swap these back around again so that I can have this bowl here. So I like this bowl. All right, so this bowl here we're going to use to make the thickening for the gravy. So what we're going to use to thicken is just tapioca starch. You could use potato starch. Basically any kind of starch would work, but what we're going to do is we're going to put the starch in a bowl. Again, not a specific recipe at all. Would you mind putting a little bit of water in that, please? We're just going to put starch and water in a bowl. It does look good, man, but this is just this is a temporary countertop and all that still, so a few more streams and then hopefully we'll have the kitchen all the way finished. So we're excited about it. All right, so we got ourselves just a little bit of water and our starch. We're going to mix this separately in a bowl. This helps make sure that there's no lumps in the gravy. You could use flour, but with flour you're gonna have a little more work ahead of you. With starch like this, it's really easy. You mix it till there's nothing left in the bottom. Make sure you mix it right before you pour it in, and then pour it in. And kind of stir it around real quick. You don't want it to sit there because it might turn into a gel in the center of that. And there we have it. It's getting thick right away, which is what we want. And if it comes out too thick, you just add more water. If it's too thin, you mix up a little more starch. Alright, just put a little more water in there. It looked a little thick. And if you're worried about losing flavor, like if it gets really, really thick and you really need to, you know, stretch it a little further, you can put a little more broth back into it. But adding a little water really isn't a big deal, especially with all the mushroom flavor that's in it. And in particular, this gravy, we want it to be pretty light, so that should be good right there. And make sure to get all the water stirred in real nice. We don't want it to be like thick on one side, thin on the other. We want to get it mixed in there real good. Again, make sure that your seitan is not like boiling like a rolling boil. It just needs to have a small simmer going on. That's it. If not, it won't have that tougher texture. It'll end up kind of mushy and soft, kind of like soggy, which is not how you want it to turn out. And if you keep it at a simmer, it'll turn out really, really good. All right, so seitan's looking good in there. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to make our broccolini. Now in this case, I am kind of out of larger cast iron pans at the time right now. So what we have is a really, really large pan, which actually ends up taking my entire stove top. I don't know if I guess you can't see it in the background there very good on that camera angle, but I'm gonna move the gravy over here out of the way. Turn that burner off, leave that one on high. Now we're gonna put this monster on there. Now, if you don't have a pan this big, then you're not going to make it through a game of PUBG. I'm sorry. You're definitely going to end up shot in the back. So this thing here, this is a squad protector. It'll protect you and 4 other people. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of oil, which ended up in my hand again. Guess I should have had a bowl of the oil over here and something besides a fork to transfer it. All right, there we go. The pan is crazy, B. It's crazy. It's just too much. All right. So we're gonna let that oil get hot. Try to somewhat get it around the pan. It might take a while. There's so many people in our family though, this pan has been amazing because when I make like stir fries or something like that, I just like make this entire pot and it actually can make 2 meals for us, which is amazing. All right, so we got our broccolini here. What we're doing, waiting for the oil to get hot. As soon as the oil gets hot, we're gonna throw the broccolini in there and toss it around a little bit, blacken the edges a little bit. In the meantime, we're gonna get this seitan out now because everything's about to be ready. We're just gonna go ahead. It's got a little bit of browning going on there. That's not too bad. Let's Set it up there. I got a lot of space here, it looks like, for counter space, but the problem is that the painted surface like this for the temporary is not very good for hot things. So excuse me if it takes a minute for me to kind of figure things out here. Throw these in here now. Broccolini, honestly, I don't like it to be cooked very much. I just like it lightly cooked. Blackened just a little bit to give it some flavor. See if I can finesse this. You know what? Stuck that in the gravy. Let's just do it this way. Usually I pour the gravy into the pan. I think this time we're actually just going to add the seitan to the gravy. Saves on space there. All right, there we go. That's one way to do it. That blackened flavor on the broccolini too is so good. It's just like asparagus. You just barely want to blacken it just a little bit. Let me smell. You guys can't smell that? I even let the door open. So how was work though? The rough, man? No way you see, that's not fun. You know what's great about having a rough day at work though? Is that moment when you get home. That minute you get to sit down. And think about it, you wouldn't have that minute if it wasn't rough at work though. So for seasoning on this, we're not really going to do much of anything except for add a little soy sauce to it. So as soon as these, you could do a little pepper if you wanted. Not really any need for it. Just waiting for it to blacken a little bit. Add a little more. Add a little more oil in there. You don't want it to be soggy. Like the worst thing you can do is boil broccoli. That's nasty. Come on. Even full-size broccoli, not the broccolini like this. Gets rid of so much flavor. Right. Yeah, I saw the picture of the light and stuff, man. That's pretty sweet. That's the next thing I got to work on is lighting here, and more cameras. I mean, you see, we got 2 now. But we're still not using the GoPros like we're supposed to be. So more cables and more techie stuff I don't understand. So I just look for it to, you can see it'll start kind of changing color. Like you see here, the stalk here, you see how it's like a lighter color? I'm looking for it to get that darker color to it. Just in general, you'll watch the whole pan turn darker. That's what we're waiting on. I don't know if I can't quite get that over there at the same time. Huh? Now you can see it's starting to get the nice blackening on it here. I don't know how much. Guess that camera can't quite see that, can it? Yeah. Now see it? No, lighting is shit. It looks fucking good, okay? It looks good. It's blackened, it looks nice. You can't see it, but it does. And it smells good too. So the next thing you guys gotta do is you gotta actually make it, you gotta make it at home. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna turn this off because I don't want it to be fully at high heat as soon as I add the soy sauce to it. I don't want to burn the soy sauce and get that burnt soy sauce flavor. So we're gonna turn it down like that, and we're gonna give it a second to cool off just a little bit before we add the soy sauce. Turn that off as well, and then I'm gonna grab a plate. Throw some of this stuff on a plate so you guys can see what's going on. Some potatoes. Fresh herbs too. Fresh herbs, fresh garlic. That's really where it's at with the potatoes. 100%. Got this for getting a little extra gravy in it. We're gonna put that seitan right up on there. Lots of gravy. Potatoes are life, but so is gravy. Alright. Alright, now that's cooled down a little bit. Yeah, I haven't added any lighting into this yet. That's all coming. Still a little hot for it, but cast iron stays hot for a while. Alright. There we go. And all that juice, so good. And there it is. Actually, I guess this is the better camera. Seitan, mashed potatoes, fresh garlic, broccolini, fresh gravy. Amazing. You guys definitely make this for yourself. Don't just watch this and say, hey man, that's cool, and we love to watch your cooking show and not make it, because that's just, come on, no fun. You gotta go home, make this food, try it, see that vegan is really fucking good. There's nothing you're gonna miss about not having meat in this plate right here. It's completely savory, delicious, good, and there's lots more to come. So thank you guys for hanging out, and I want to give a shout out to BSpeed99. If you guys don't know who he is, you definitely got to go over, check him out on Twitch. Not sure if he has a YouTube channel. I don't know if you do, B. If you do, please put a link up. But he's been doing a lot to support the stream. He's gifted a lot of subs here, so a lot of people have come in thanks to him. So again, B, man, one love. Thank you so much for all the support, brother. And I'll see you guys soon, maybe later in a game. So GG's. Good night, guys.